it was easy for me to be passionate about what this industry stood for. An opportunity to add value to the lives of others. That impressed me. And it was, and yes, don't get me wrong, the opportunity to make money was important. But I realized my first 6 months in this industry that I was becoming a different person.
Welcome to Direct Selling Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallen, and this is where direct selling high performers and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin. So super excited about our guest today. He's an entrepreneur, life coach, and philanthropist who's dedicated over 2 decades to changing the legacies of families across North America through direct selling. He was introduced to the channel as a discontent retail manager, and through a passion for helping others and a relentless work ethic, he quickly rose to the top of his company and has now built a team today of over 340,000 entrepreneurs. He's been recognized as the National Entrepreneur of the Year from the National Black Chamber of Commerce. That's the largest minority business entity in the world, and has appeared on mainstream media such as Fox, BET, and TBN. And over the last 12 years, he's also balanced working directly with the corporate team as an executive and a trusted advisor directly to his company's CEO. And on the personal side, he's a proud family man residing up in Maryland with his wife, Tracy, where they have 4 beautiful children and 2 grandchildren. Let's welcome today, Darnell Self. Darnell, how you doing, brother?
Blake, man, things are amazing. I appreciate the invitation, and great to be on this podcast with you.
I'm excited. I had a chance to see you on the DSU stage not too long ago and was just blown away by not just your energy, your delivery, but obviously the perspective and wisdom you brought to that crowd. I'm super excited about our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Excited about it.
So 24 years, am I getting that right? 24 years in your company? Is that the number?
Yep, that's the number, man. I started here when I was 28 and I'm 53 years old. So it's been 24 years. It'll be 25 years this year.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm sure over the course of 24 years on one path in one lane, you've seen a lot of seasons.
Oh yeah. Lots of seasons, man. and lots of people, obviously.
I love it. Well, I definitely want to talk about kind of the season we're all experiencing as a channel, as a community today. But let's kind of first go back to maybe the early days just for a minute. I read on your background. So, retail manager of a clothing store. You learned about direct selling for the first time. And I just want to know, did you know in that moment you'd be dedicating your life to this profession, or take us back there?
No, I had no idea. I was frustrated. I actually like fashion. I still like fashion in clothing, but I did not like the 60 to 80-hour work weeks because I managed the store. So when people called in sick, I had to go in. The weekends were the most important times, of course, in retail. So anything on a Saturday or Sunday in my personal life, I missed it. So family reunions, church, kids sporting events, birthday parties. If it was a Saturday or Sunday event, you can count Darnell out. And I was just, I was tired of that. And at 25 years old, listen, when you're in your 20s, back then, I'm about to age myself, retirement was said to be 55. And when you're 25, 55 is old. Now, it's not old anymore, right? At 53, it's halftime, just coming out the locker room, baby, third quarter. But back then, it was old. Now, I'm like, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. But here's what I picked up, Blake, and I didn't know it because I believe everything happens for you, not to you. And what I didn't realize is, I was hiring, I was firing, I was scheduling folks there at the store. So I ran the store like I owned it. I mean, I did the inventory, so I knew what was selling. So I knew what to tell the buyers to buy more of. I knew what was being stolen because we did inventory for theft. So all these things meant something to direct selling, but I didn't know. I didn't even know about the industry. And when I answered an ad in the paper, I thought I was going to an interview. and it was my introduction to direct sales. And I was bitten by the bug. I could not let it go. I fell in love with the industry. I'm like, this is where I'm going to be. Unlimited earning potential. And I get to help as many people as I want. And I have a big heart to help anyway. And I get paid to help people. And that's the beauty of our industry.
Well, I love it. I mean, that's some perspective that I know we get a chance to learn from today, and all of the seasons, and I'm sure the ups and the downs, and we'll get some highlights. And, I just want to say, I love hearing that story. And Darnell, I know we're just kind of building a new relationship, but like loyalty is huge on my personal values list.
Me too.
Right. So, my wife's downstairs. We met in high school. We were high school sweethearts.
Oh, wow.
I, in a different way, I got started in this industry when I was 19, and in a weird, different way, I've only done one thing. Now that one thing has been like bought and sold and merged and all the things, but it really has been like one thing. So I was just super excited. I was like, wow, almost 20, this will be 25 years.
Yeah.
For you with the company you're with. And
my wife and I met while we were working at the mall. We were in college. She was going to a college here in Maryland. I was going to a different college. But we met while we were working at the mall. So we got married while we were still working at the mall. And then 1 year after we got married, I quit my job to go full-time in direct selling. My in-laws.
I love it. You literally just gave me chills, because I could feel that just in your story, right? And
Sure.
It's a story that it's too rare or uncommon today, right? To and I think loyal is the right word, to be loyal to a path. And I'm just curious for you, any keys that you found coming up on 25 years, right, in the lane and company you're with, to staying focused for that long doing one thing?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, you have to be passionate, as you know, about what you do. And there's no real gray area there. You either are or you aren't. Like, you're either in love with your spouse or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was easy for me to be passionate about what this industry stood for. An opportunity to add value to the lives of others. That impressed me. And it was, and yes, don't get me wrong, the opportunity to make money was important, but I realized my first 6 months in this industry that I was becoming a different person.
Mm-hmm.
I was more patient. I offered more grace and forgiveness. And so all of a sudden I'm becoming this different person, and people around me noticed it. So because of that, it was easy for me to stay, as we're talking about now, loyal to a path that was helping me to be a better man, a better father, better son, better husband, better leader. How do you quit that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, and by the way, I'd learned, remember I said everything happened for you, not to you. What I'd learned, Blake, in back at the mall, I'd learned culture building and didn't even realize I was learning that. So there, I built loyalty too. I ran that store like I owned it. I mean, I took the guys out to Cheesecake Factory after work. And so I was building culture then, not realizing I was going to be in an environment where culture meant a lot. And so, to stay motivated, I've always reinvented myself and revisited and redefined my why. We hear that often, but I firmly believe most folks have not peeled the onion back far enough to really figure out like what gets them going. Because if they're not truly doing their business when we don't feel like doing it, then you haven't really identified your why.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy.
I love that.
You feel like doing it, but when you don't feel like doing it and you still do your exposures, or you let people know what you do, and you still, even after 3 rejections, make an additional call, you've probably got something that's motivating you, a significant why. But I think most folks have not truly identified that and put that in front of them, so that they're reminded of it often.
I love that, Darnell. And you touched on a couple of things there. If you get put in an environment that's really making you better, and it sounds like in your story you had people around you that are making you, right, the best version of yourself, and you're growing, and in doing that you can help others and make an income. Why would you ever look elsewhere? Let me ask, I mean, in your whole career, who have been some of your biggest mentors?
The very first personal development program I ever listened to was from the great late Jim Rohn.
Mm-hmm.
And it was building an unshakable character. And I'm so thankful for that now that we've, built a fairly large organization, because character means a lot, as you know. You know what I mean? Making the decision that's best for everybody, even when no one else is looking.
Mm-hmm.
No hidden agenda. And so I learned that early on. And even, people would say, probably if they looked at the decisions I made early on in my business, why would you invest in others before you even made money yourself for your own household? And it was because I learned about putting others first, eating last as a leader. And so those programs helped me out. I had one person, Blake, only one person who's a friend of the family, who was an entrepreneur. No one else in my family was an entrepreneur. So that was tough because my mom worked for the government. My dad drove the Metro bus, which is the DC transit system. So they weren't negative, but they were protective because it was an unknown for them. So I could have defined it as negative, but I didn't. I said, I know they're being protective. They were like, babe, you need security in your life, 2 weeks check, 2 weeks check. And then for me, that's not securities. Security, someone telling me what I'm worth isn't secure, because that means someone can tell me what I'm not worth. And so I wanted to get paid what I was worth. And it wasn't the mall's fault for paying me $40,000 a year. It was my fault for accepting what I thought I was worth more than. So that's, so that mentor, that friend of the family, really helped me in terms of goal setting. I'd never set a goal. Here I am, 25. I'd never set a goal in my life. I'd say, I wish I would wish for this. I'd want for that. And I can't wait for that, but I thought that was a goal. That wasn't a goal. There's no date attached to it. There was no plan, and a wish is not a good strategy, as you know. So having him a part of my life, he's just a great man. His name is Howard Brooks. And he really, helped me to understand what goal setting was all about. So him, the great late Jim Rohn. Then I started to go to these seminars. I was going to see John C. Maxwell when he was only speaking at small churches, just before arenas. So he was speaking at churches in Northern Virginia, and I was going to see him there at churches. So it was funny. Now that I think about, the arenas that Tony Robbins and all these guys speaking, I'm like, man, what an honor and a privilege. I had a chance to see these guys when they were in smaller rooms and intimate settings.
I love that. And we share a belief in a lot of these leaders and a lot of common mentors, for sure. I love your perspective, saying that, things happen for a reason, and you may not realize those reasons when you're in the moment. Sometimes the dots kind of connect in the future. I'm curious, is there any kind of defining moment in your journey as an entrepreneur that when you were in the moment at that point in time, you were like, why is this happening to me? Like, it seemed horrible. It seemed negative. It was one of those sky is falling, where it was easy to maybe slip into kind of like, a why is me, that later on, whether that was a year or 10 years or 20, like later on, you realized was an absolute blessing. Or are there any of those defining moments that you could share with us?
How long is this episode? I can go on and on. I actually have a podcast where one of the episodes is called Connecting the Dots. And that's why I was smiling so big when you said that. The whole episode is about connecting the dots. And you are spot on. Like, when I was a child, they had this game, this workbook, and it was a bunch of dots, right? And it was 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you connected and you went in order, it would form a picture. Well, when you're on number 4, for an example, and it's 32 dots, you can't see the full picture. You're like, why in the heck am I connecting this dot? But in the end, you realize that every dot mattered, and you're spot on, Blake. I can tell you about, like, August. I joined my company in September of 1998. August of 1998, my car was repossessed. And I borrowed money from my mother to save my home from foreclosure. And my mom said this to me, Blake. She says, babe, I love you. And, I'll do anything to help you. And this is all that mom has. And it crushed me because she's retired at this point. And I'm thinking, man, I'm taking her retirement to save my home. And I mean, I guess it didn't crush me too much because I took the money, but it crushed me in terms of my spirit. And she's never said the words, "I'm disappointed in you," ever. I felt like I was disappointing her, though. And that was the point. That was a dot. I didn't understand at that point. But what I did not realize, Blake, was that so many people would join me on this mission, and they've had a moment where finances were tough, and they've had a moment where their esteem was low, and they've had moments where they felt like, man, how am I going to get through this month? And so it's allowed me to speak with people, not at people. And unintentionally, I've heard a lot of leaders speak at people. It's almost insensitive and belittling, like, you're so irresponsible. How could you ever put yourself in that position? And it's only because they don't understand. They've never been there. And it's not their fault. They've just, you know what I mean? They've never walked that walk. And so I'm thankful now, because it's allowed me to relate to people who have nothing, who start with absolutely nothing, who start with the lowest self-esteem, who start like, I didn't even want to talk to people. I'm like, I'm so disingenuous to talk about an opportunity, and I don't even have a car. I don't even know how I'm going to pay my bills. I know what that feels like. You know what I mean? And so that dot allowed me to relate to even more people than I ever knew. And so, again, I wouldn't have asked for that. I wouldn't have said, God, please, put me through this situation. But that dot essentially allowed me to build the organization we have today, because and I know there's a lot of people out there suffering, and they don't want to be kicked while they're down. They need someone to say, hey, listen, it's okay. Because tomorrow does not have to look like today. And the day before everything changes looks exactly the same. But you have to feel differently. So that's, so that's just one of the many dots, Blake. I promise you this episode could be 3 hours. A lot of dots.
Well, Darnell, I had a feeling, and it's just a fact that you don't get as far as you have gotten for as long as you have been there without going through those dots, as you're saying, or those perspectives. And I think depending on where our listeners are at, because we may have someone listening to this that just joined this industry for the first time yesterday, or someone that's been at it for 30 years. But something I see, and I'm sure you see the same thing, is people don't give themselves the time.
Yeah.
In order to figure out why they're going through what they're going through. They go through it, they get knocked out of the game. They go through it, and here's something, it creates doubt, and they quit, right? They go through a shift, and we're going to get talking about shifts in the season we're in, because we're in a season of shifts right now. And all of a sudden they get knocked out of the path that they're meant to be on. Yeah. Right. And your story is so powerful. And I'm so excited we're bringing this in early episodes, because it's a story. Yeah. Loyalty, consistency, persistency, going through the stuff is what everybody has to go through, right, in order to achieve the level of success you've had. Let me ask you this, and then we can kind of shift to some of the, the disruptive, evolution we're seeing today. But I'm curious, because we've all seen in this industry, someone goes through that dot, that shift, that change, that doubter, and they get knocked out of the game, or they feel like they have to go a different lane, right, or a different direction, or try something totally new. And I'm willing to bet for you to do what you've done, as long as you've done it, you've had to reinvent yourself in the same place. So talk to me about, like, instead of having to change your environment or change your story or find a new vehicle, how do you reinvent yourself in the same place over and over and over again to stay relevant and consistent? Would love your insight there.
Yeah. So when you're clear on what you want, you also become clear on what you don't want. If you're not crystal clear on what you want, any distraction will cause you to think you may want something else. So I knew exactly what I wanted. And I had people around me who held me accountable for what I said I wanted. And I still do today, in all areas of my life, by the way. So I have accountability partners in my spiritual life. I have accountability partners in my fitness life. I have accountability partners with my business and personal development, and they hold me accountable. Hey, what'd you get out of the chapter today? And my gosh, if I didn't read, what am I going to say? Oh, it was good. That's how you know someone didn't read, by the way, Blake. It's like, oh, yeah, it was good. Right. So my point is that accountability, being clear on what I want. And when I'm clear on what I want, I know that I'm not getting it where I am. So it causes me to get in different rooms with different people so that I can take that value back to the lane I'm currently in or on. So here's my point. I don't have to change direction because my goal is still my goal. But sometimes I have to figure out what shift needs to happen
Mm-hmm.
in order to keep me on track with reaching my goals. If we continue to move forward in a direction where we're not receiving results over a period of time, we start to doubt whether those results will ever be achieved. Or if we have frequent what we define as failures on the way to our goal, then we start to doubt. So either frequency or length of time. This is what causes us to sometimes shift lanes and shift directions. And hopefully I can help out, because I've been there where I'm like, am I crazy to think this will ever work? Especially after 4 years, right? Because it was 4 years before I really had results. And people often ask, what did you do the month that it all changed? I didn't do anything different. Just 4 years caught up. 4 years of consistency, 4 years of sowing seed, 4 years of cultivating, 4 years of attending events and learning more, 4 years of sharpening my axe. So I just kept showing up when people stopped. I kept sharpening my axe when people stopped. I kept sowing seed when people stopped. So it wasn't like I did anything different. I didn't get off the highway. I may have gone to the slow lane instead of the fast lane, but I was still heading in the right direction the entire time. So I think that's what really helped me out, is that I have attended different events, even now, because of social media and different ways that I market today. I've invested in myself in mastermind events, et cetera, so that I can reinvent myself, reinvent my personal brand, so that I can still be attractive in an environment where people are looking for something different than they were 20 years ago.
I love it. And, I've found that to be consistent in the top earners, top achievers, top leaders in our channel. It's, you got to learn to reinvent yourself where you are, right? Yep. In order to continue to give yourself the time to reach the potential of where you are. And so often we just get distracted and we're bouncing onto different things. And I see people making the mistake of constantly like going back to new starting lines. You're never going to get to your finish line if you're constantly going back to new starting lines. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit. And I know we've all heard the saying, like, the only thing constant is change, right? And intellectually, we understand that. And obviously, for the time you've been in this channel, same with me, like, we've seen a lot of shifts, a lot of seasons, right, of evolution. But Darnell, I don't know if you feel the same way. What's going on right now? It feels different. Like, we are in a state where we are experiencing, right, a velocity of evolution. Like, it is intense, it is real, it is fast, it is frequent. And I love your lens of approaching things from a different perspective. Disruption, I know, is a word that has energy. I know some people can instantly gravitate to like familiar and trying to hang on to what has been, or hang on to what that's natural. We gravitate to that kind of fear-based or scarcity-based mindset. But I love what you said. It's like, you got to see the opportunity, right, in the dot or the season of the time we're in. And I see opportunity in the disruption.
Yeah.
I see it as positive. Like, disruption means better. It means a new efficient way. It means better for consumers. It means better opportunity. It means faster evolution. Like, I think disruption is exciting. But yes, as leaders, we have to lead our communities to be on the right side of the disruption that's happening. So I guess my question for you, I see you smiling, like, we're in this season, and I know there's always similarities that are like foundational, but there's also shifts. Yeah. What are some of the disruptive shifts you're seeing as a leader right now, today, that are shifts that are maybe a little different than a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And what are you doing to lead your community to be on the right side of those shifts?
Yeah, no, such a great question. And, it's funny, Blake, because when I got started, it was, make out a list of everybody you know. Don't prejudge. We even gave memory joggers to help people to think, who do you know? A for architect, B for barber, C for culinary, just made out a list of everybody you know. And our industry will never change where, and that's business, where your money's going to come from people. It's not going to come from trees or animals. So you still need people. But how we access those people, that changes. And like you said, it's disruptive. And I love that, because there's so many digital disruptors out here today that causes even more part-timers to win. Mm-hmm. That's what makes me smile, because we say, hey, part-time anytime, you can build your business in a direct selling industry. And quite honestly, for a long time, unless you were full-time, you weren't making big money. Mm-hmm. And to see part-timers now truly make full-time income on a part-time basis because of disruptors. I'm so elated, as you said. I embrace it. You just think about it. My mom told me, don't get in the car with strangers. Now I pay strangers to pick me up with rideshare. Like,
Yeah.
craziest thing. And you know what I mean? That's disruptive. It's disruptive. I try to explain to my kids what it was like to go rent a video to bring home to watch a movie. And they were like, I don't understand. And I'm like, no. We didn't just hit a button on remote and you can watch, with Amazon and with Netflix and all of that. And like, literally, we went and picked up a movie and bought it home. They just could not get that, Blake.
Yeah. And then you had to bring it back when you were done.
I had to bring it back. And if you didn't, it was a late fee. They were like, what? I'm like, yeah. And if you didn't rewind it, it was a rewind fee. They were like, rewind. So my point is, I embrace disruption. And what's happened, especially since the pandemic, right? Because a lot of people started to figure out, hey, people aren't going to like meetings. So, you had to figure out, how do we reach folks? And so we realized that, hold on, this is a blessing, because the part-time person can actually be onboarded. Like, we can actually coach them and train them digitally. So that way they don't have to worry about my babysitter when I get off. Because you got the part-timer, check this out, the part-timer who introduces the part-timer. So the part-timer introduces their new part-time recruit. Now they've got to try to match their 2 part-time schedules. So it was hard to match. It's one thing if I'm working with them, because I'm full-time, been full-time for a long time. But you got a part-timer introducing a part-timer trying to figure out when they can grab coffee to onboard. But now, all of a sudden, with disruption, you could digitally onboard plenty of people. They could even watch it on their way from work or listen to it on their way to work. So we were able to onboard people faster, get them equipped, confident, competent, earlier than before, where we had to meet. And I'm not saying this is in place of, it's an and, which I'm sure we'll get to, is hybrid, right? So it's an and with this disruption that's happening. So people onboarding faster, meaning they're getting up and running faster. They're selling their products faster. They're being able to recruit faster because they're increasing their skill set faster, which means that they're more likely to stick around longer because they've had that belief check faster. So we have just increased the speed in which we've been able to onboard people, which is phenomenal because we're using digital disruptors. And so when you think about technology, before you were like, hey, if I could study this technology, I can finally get it over the next 5 years. Oh, you better get it quickly because it's changing every couple of years now. You know what I mean? If not faster. So I think it's put us in a place where we're willing to make shifts faster. Before, they used to tell me, if you get a hot idea, take a cold shower. That's not the system. Now it's like, hey, the system is, yes, we still deal with people. And the system is, yes, you still want to use third party, but you can just do it a lot faster now. And so there's different techniques and different technology. And if people are saying, oh, no, we don't want to do that, man, you're stuck in 15 years ago. Yeah, I guarantee you, it's hard to create new success stories with younger people. I already know what that company's age group is if they're not using technology. They're all 60 years old. You know what I mean? They're all Hall of Famers talking about what they did 15 years ago. How do I know? Because my company's been there, right? I've been around, as you said, for 24 years. So I've watched all these different seasons, as you said. So I absolutely embrace disruption because it's allowed us to move with a sense of urgency. It's allowed us to attract a younger group of people who are born into disruption. You know what I mean? Like kids now, like you just give your kids your phone and they're like, oh yeah, I got it figured out for you, Dad. And I'm like, look, I have 2 grandkids. My 6-year-old grandson is like, oh, I got it for you. I'm like, how do you know how to do that? So my point is that if we want to attract people who are just used to moving fast, they're used to disruption, then we have to embrace disruption.
I love it. I think those are great points. And just hearing you kind of lay out the pandemic period we all went through, right? Yeah. And what it did to our space, it really just normalized what our channel had been doing. Like, but like prior to pandemic, if you tell people you work from home, people are like, is everything okay? But during pandemic, like it just normalized. Well, now it's like, you're weird if you go to an office. And you're right. Because we had to not just embrace, right, but rely on virtual digital technology to continue to grow it. And it accelerated everything. And now we're obviously through that phase. But we've learned that we can be more efficient. And it in many ways, I think it created an acceleration, right, for our channel. And like you said, how people can grow. I love that. You kind of touched on real quick. I heard you say Pro Bowler, and I saw you on the DSU stage, and I love the analogy of kind of your Hall of Famer and your Pro Bowler, and the approach you're using to really continue to reach down, identify new leadership, a next generation, right? A new wave. Can you kind of elaborate on the philosophy and maybe some tips and tactics on exactly what you and your team are doing to constantly raise up that next generation?
Yeah, I mean, as we all know, Blake, it's critical. I mean, stories sell. And if we're not sharing new stories, people feel like, oh, there's no opportunity here anymore. Whatever your company is. It's like if every story is from 10 years ago, people are going to at some point think, man, I had to get started 10 years ago because everyone having all of the success got started 10 years ago. So new stories are important. But how do you highlight the new stories without making those who've been around for a long time feel like they're not being respected for paving the way? And so you have, the Hall of Famer group. We don't call them that, but just as an example to help us to really drive this point home in this podcast episode, Hall of Famer, you could have played ball 20 years ago, but because of the success you've had in the space, you're still inducted. You still get to wear the jacket. You still get to come to, the games. But the Pro Bowl is what you've done this year. Like if you're in a Pro Bowl, you played your butt off this year. You're the best of the best in your position, whether you're a lineman or DB, if you're talking about football. So if you're an all-star in the NBA, like you played your butt off that year. So now all of a sudden, that's the most relevant group. But how do you recognize them and celebrate them without discounting those who've been around? And so we've done several things, right? One, seating at an event. Right. So you have the all-stars. Of course, they're going to be seated near the front, but you still seat the Hall of Famers near the front. You don't put them in the back. I mean, they're Hall of Famers, but the all-stars are the ones who are on the stage. In the Hall of Famers, it's got to be a communication, though, with the Hall of Famers that, hey, look, in order to continue to build your legacy, we want new folks thriving on your team. And so who are the new folks on your team that we should be showcasing so that the rest of the audience sees an opportunity for them to be the next new people on the stage? If we continue to put the same people on the stage, no one thinks they could ever be up there because, oh, you got to be in that group, right? It's like, a clique. And so that clear communication has allowed us to have the buy-in from the Hall of Famers because these folks are on their team. And every now and then we sprinkle some Hall of Famers up there just to show legacy. But it's great to have the all-stars up there because they're going to say last month, 2 weeks ago, when sometimes the Hall of Famers are semi-retired and all they can say is, back in the day when we used to, 10 years ago. And so that's why it's important to have someone who's done it this year. And if not, then that should be our focus.
I think that's such a powerful analogy. Simple, but it's also everything. Any company that's been around for any period of time, you're going to have the Hall of Famers that pave the way. But if you don't, as any team, any organization, identify that next generation and show them that it's possible and create a path, you become a lid, right? You become a lid. You stagnate the group. So I love that because I'm sure there'll be some Hall of Famers listening to this, and hopefully your message resonates of, for their legacy, for the company future, for our channel's expansion, like share the microphone, pass the stage, like show the spotlight. Well, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be an article actually in an upcoming DSN magazine that goes into a whole generational research study on this topic. I don't know if it's even out yet, but I know one of the punchlines is that this next generation, Generation Z, actually has no preconceived limitations of our channel, which is super interesting, right? When you think about it. And it's because the channels, it's all getting mainstreamed, right? We have all this omnichannel channel consolidation. You got D2C companies launching referral campaigns and, influencer programs, and mainstream companies doing referral. And so it's like everything's kind of becoming the same in that we recognize relationship and trust and referral is the way to break through the noise today, no matter what your company is, product is, brand is. So like what we do is being mainstreamed right now. And it's interesting that the next generation, it's just normal. There's no negative preconceived notion, limitate. They just don't know. It's a blank slate, tabula rasa. So you guys are doing some pretty cool things, if I'm correct, on how to actually identify and raise up, not just by talent or skill set, by actually generation or actual age. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so we start off with the millennials. And so we actually have a recognition category specifically for that group. It's called 40 under 40. Mm-hmm. So the top 40 producers under 40, the top 40 recruiters under 40, and they get it's the coolest award. And so they love it because it's something that, they don't want a normal trophy, but it's set up like they're a platinum artist. And like they're Drake or somebody, so they're like, yes, this. And so the awards are cool, made up by them. The ideas came from them. You know what I mean? The idea of the recognition came from them. So I can't even take credit for it. It came from someone on our team who's younger than 40. 53. I didn't think of it. I was just like, oh, we'll just kind of highlight some young people. He's like, no, we need a whole category. And so and we embraced it. And guess what? People they want to be they want to be 40 under 40. They're like, where am I? I'm number 52. I'm almost at 40. Like the young people are running for that. That recognition is huge. And then from there, of course, 35-year-olds are more likely to relate to 28-year-olds, and 28-year-olds are more likely to relate to 24 years old. So we're moving towards Gen Z, and then we'll probably have to create another recognition for that group. My daughter is in Gen Z. So it's just, it's exciting when I think about people who are in a community that they have a language that they can relate to. You know what I mean? Like some of the language I'm learning from my own kids, I'm like, what does that even mean? Like that didn't mean that when I was growing up. And so if I understand everything that's being said, it means I'm not actually relating to them. Like on stage, if I'm, if the music that's being played when I come out on stage, if the whole audience, the young people are like, yes, that's the wrong music. So, you know what I mean? So you have to make adjustments. If you want a younger audience, if you want a younger group, we have to inquire, what is it that you want to hear? What is it that you want to see? And again, as I'm blessed to have a corporate role. So I'm that liaison between the field and the home office. And so, I play a role there, but I'm thankful. And this is for everybody watching. Even if you're building a team of 7 or 8 people and you want younger people to start entering that team, what is it that we can do to attract younger people? Well, it'd be nice to ask younger people, even your kids or family members or neighbors or nieces, hey, like if you were to start your own business, what would you be looking for? And I know the studies are obviously been done by DSM, which is powerful. But so we've done that. Though, Blake, we have, created recognition for that at regional events. We highlight younger people because, again, if they're just sitting in the audience and people don't know that, hey, look, we've got 6 people right now that are in the Comma Club who are under 30 years old, meaning they made over $1,000 last month, right? They're in the Comma Club. And it's like, if you're under 40 or you're under 30, whatever, whatever category someone chooses to create, and to highlight those people, it says to someone else who's in that room, wow, they're like me. I can do this, because I'm looking at, all of these 50-something-year-olds, these old heads, thinking, I don't know if I can do it. But now that you recognize those 6, even though they are minority, unfortunately, I must admit, young people are a minority in our company. But we have been intentional about bringing on more young people. And guess what's happening? We're bringing on more young people because we're specifically highlighting, celebrating, and recognizing young people.
And I think it's the power of conversations like this, tapping into the perspective and wisdom that you have But then also getting simple things to shift your intention. So if you're listening to this right now, everything that Darnell's talking about, you can apply today at a team level. You don't need to wait, right? What are we doing, right? What can you do to recognize and acknowledge not just maybe the Hall of Famers, if you've been around for a little while, but the All-Stars, the Pro Bowlers, the people that are on the field, so, running the plays, scoring today. And in addition to the achievement or the performance, I love the idea of just age your generation, because there is. I mean, we got millennials crushing it in this industry. We got Gen Z now that, like you said, are so in tune with the disruptive technologies that they can rise faster and then teach the rest. But it starts with, like you said, I think intentions, that word. We've talked a little bit, Darnell, on like the shifts, maybe just a couple minutes as we're navigating this season of shift, this disruptive time. I also know you're a fan that there are similarities, right? There are kind of timeless principles, foundational items that no matter what happens in the world around us, that are still truth, right? And how to build a community movement here. Maybe just a couple minutes on some of the things that have been consistent, right, over your entire tenure that you're still applying even more today.
Yeah. I mean, there's, and quite honestly, Blake, they're life principles. Like, we're talking about Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers or All-Stars. We're talking about, those have been around for a little bit compared to Gen Z. And when we do that, so we're here on this episode, you and I just, chopping it up and chatting back and forth. But when I'm communicating on a team Zoom or at a regional event or international event, I'm not communicating or messaging it the way I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. Because if you want to build a solid, loyal culture, you cannot tear down one tower to make yours look taller. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't bash the Hall of Famers to make the All-Stars look good. I wouldn't even mention it. I would just mention the All-Stars. Mm-hmm. I've already had a private conversation with the Hall of Famers privately, because you never chastise, you never say anything that could be looked at as de-edifying in mm-hmm. public to any group. And so that's always done privately. So I just mention that because for those who perhaps want to take this approach, I would never on a public forum say to a group of people, hey, you've been around for a while and we're going to start celebrating these folks. You know what I mean? That's a private conversation to say, hey, mm-hmm. I've been hearing this. Love to get your thoughts on this. You know what I mean? You're getting buy-in so that they have an opportunity to say, makes sense. Yep. Or there could be some discussion if there is some disagreement. So I just wanted to bring that up because I don't want anyone, sometimes newer associates take what we say and they just go say it. And
I think that's huge, because anything that can be misunderstood will be misunderstood. And I appreciate the transparency, but I also think that's super important. And maybe if you need to elaborate, do it, because that communication, right, on how you deliver that and who you deliver that and where you deliver it is what makes the strategy work or not work.
No, it's just cascading communication, right? So you start at the highest level possible. If you have relationship with the highest levels, and again, not everybody can communicate everything because not everybody has the same relationship with everybody. And mm-hmm. John C. Maxwell talks about the 5 levels of leadership, and unless you have permission, which is only based on relationship, then there's certain things you can't say because, Blake, you could say things to a family member of yours and it would be received differently than a stranger coming to say it, because then it would be offensive. It's like, who are you? You don't even know me. Mm-hmm. But they know if you're saying it, it's because, number one, they don't doubt the love you have for them. They don't doubt that you're saying it because you want the best light shining on them. They don't doubt that you're only sharing this because you're giving them feedback because you want them to take their better to best. For me, they don't know if there's a hidden agenda because they don't really know me. So there must be some permission there. There must be some relationship there. This is why it's important to learn the names of people's kids and why it's important to remember conversations you've had with people so that you can say, hey, man, so how was your son's baseball game? Right? Mm-hmm. It's like, man, my own brother didn't ask me about that, but you did. And all of a sudden you're building this relationship like, wow, he cares. And now you've gained some permission to say certain things that you couldn't have said. So So I just don't want people to skip over that and think that you can just go say anything to anybody and it'll be received. It may not be the message itself, but the messenger who's sharing it is the reason why it's not received.
Yeah. And I love how you said these are life principles, because I know we're talking business and we're entrepreneurs, and everybody listening is probably focused on how to go to your next level, right? In the path that you're in. But it's life. It all comes down to relationships. Relationships amplify life. They make life richer. It's got to be real. And here's the thing, even to put the business hat on, Darnell, the relationships are what separate what we do from any other channel and any other brand. The connections, the community, the relationship is what makes direct selling different and greater and better. And I love that you highlight that, because no matter the season, no matter the shift, no matter what disruption we're going through right now, it'll always come back to that's the glue.
Yeah.
That's the value. And in a world today where so much is transactional, and so many other channels are worried about the click or the sell or the upsell or the funnel, it's our differentiator. It's what can make our channel thrive.
It's real, right? And I think, the honesty is the best policy thing. It's legit. Like, when I make a mistake, not if, when, because I'm human, when I make a mistake, my job is to apologize quickly. Right? Don't, hey, I'm going to get around to it, because things fester and then people are left to believe what they think, instead of me saying, hey, look, just wanted to share with you, that's on me. That was my mistake. I mean, these are all, like you said, life principles. And no, so thank you for even, taking me down that path. I never know how I get to some paths, but something you said made me go there, because it is, I'll tell you this quick story, Blake, because when I see you next, it's like, oh, Blake. And it's a relationship, right? Because now that we've had a chance to connect for a couple of days, it's like, if someone says to me, they're looking for this, or they're looking for this door to be open, and I know that you can help perhaps open that door, like, hey, you got to call my guy, Blake. I can't promise you anything, but I'm gonna see if I connect you guys. I don't need a finder's fee. It's because I can create a win-win scenario. I know what you're looking for. I know what they're looking for. And if the two of you coming together will help benefit both of you, why wouldn't I connect the two of you? You know what I mean? And so this guy, Blake, he was very successful, and he's going to Hong Kong for a business trip. And he felt bad. He felt guilty because his wife was having a big birthday party. And he was like, babe, I'm not going to be able to be there. I do have a business trip. She's like, I understand. I'm still going to have the party, though. He's like, cool. Well, his business meeting ended early in Hong Kong. He lived in the States. So he's like, I'm going to surprise her and come back early. So she has this big party, and people are like formal. They have servers there, Blake, carrying the little platters and hors d'oeuvres. So he's like, oh, I'm putting on my tux and pretend like I'm a server. So he dressed up just like the server, had a little name badge and everything, and is carrying around the hors d'oeuvres. And nobody realized it was him. Even his wife, he was standing near, and she turned and grabbed an hors d'oeuvre, but never realized it was him. And here's what he said in his talk and sharing the story. He said, it wasn't that no one recognized me that hurt my feelings. It was that no one even noticed me. And how many times do we walk past someone at a hotel who's cleaning our room, and we're like, hi, good morning, but we don't notice them? Meaning that if we saw the same person later on that evening, we wouldn't notice it was the same person, because we saw them, but we didn't notice them. That's a big deal in our space, is to actually notice people. It's emotional intelligence, to realize someone needs a tissue, to realize someone dropped something, to notice. And so that is a huge differentiator in our space. And it has allowed us to build a culture that I feel has been probably one of the biggest assets of our business lasting 24 years. It's been our team culture. And because we teach things like that, noticing people, building relationships, life skills. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you.
I love it. And it's what you said where we started. It's what kept you here, right? Was you were becoming better because of the relationships and the connections in the circle. And it's just awesome to just go through this conversation from kind of where you started and what kept you in the game. And And now you're doing the same thing to hundreds of thousands of people and setting that example and culture. And that's why it's working. But I want to be mindful of your time. So before we get to any closing thoughts you do want to share, I want to do rapid fire real quick, because I'm personally curious on this. We've talked a lot. I appreciate all the time and all the perspective. And I think there's been some amazing nuggets and huge value to anybody who listens, whether they just started in the channel, today or they are one of the veterans. So I appreciate that. But one of the themes we've kind of danced on today has been these shifts, and not just shifts in the world or shifts in the channel or disruptive shifts, but the perspective shifts, the mindset shifts that you've taken along the way to maximize all this. And I'm a huge fan, because I think everything starts with that belief shift, that mindset shift. So I have 3 quick questions that are kind of that related. For you personally, what was one of the largest belief shifts, mindset shifts, that has led to where you are today? You went from telling yourself one thing to something else. That shift in perspective kind of changed the trajectory of your life and got you where? What's just one that comes on top of your mind?
Yeah. So, and there's a lot, like you said, but the one thing is I'm an introvert by nature. So my mother worried about me because she was like, go make some friends. And if any of my introverts watching this, you know what I'm talking about. Your parents worry about you. And I'm like, I'm good, Mom. She's like, no, you really need to make friends. I'm like, no, because the introvert is really good, in the hammock on a vacation by themselves.
Uh-huh.
So one of the untruths that I had to uncover and make a shift and realize it was just something I was telling myself that was never true, and that as an introvert could not succeed in a people business. And because an introvert, just like an extrovert, can learn the skills necessary to succeed in any business. An introvert just does not get his power from a group of people, right? My energy doesn't come from being around a lot of people. My son, who's an extrovert, he's going to say, so who else is coming? Because his energy comes from a lot of people. If I'm saying, Malik, we're going to this particular event, he's like, is Auntie coming? Is Granddad? Because he wants to know how many people are going to be there, because he's an extrovert. So, but the skills necessary to succeed here, Blake, an introvert and extrovert, anybody can learn the skills. It's a skill of follow-up. I allow myself, my own self-talk, to say, well, I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can do that, but I can. I still don't have to go to parties in my personal life and be around a lot of people. And I make enough money where I can go on a private island if I want to. So my point is that it's so that was a big one for me to dispel that myth. You know what I mean? That I was telling myself. I don't even know if anyone else told me. I think I was telling myself that. It was my own self-imposed barrier. So anyway, I'm just proving.
No, I love that. I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate. I'm a natural introvert as well, so I'm smiling, and I'm sure there's plenty of listening. So same question, but different audience. So what shift, if you could snap your fingers, right, and give a brand new distributor, someone who's just getting started in the path that they're on, and say, here's one shift that you need to take, one mindset shift to the brand new person, what would you give them?
Not allowing other people's opinions to dictate your path. That was big for me. Throughout my 20s, unfortunately, I was in a space where the thing that kept me back from the success that eventually I was blessed to have was my concern about what other people thought about me. What are they going to think? What are they going to say? Are they going to laugh? So unfortunately, the speed in which I had success was determined by my concern about what other people are going to think about me. And people are going to think what they're going to think anyway. So the moment I was able to overcome that mindset and just say, look, I'm just going to do it. And those who love me will love me anyway. Those who support me will support me anyway. Those who laugh are going to laugh anyway. So I put myself in a place where I just did the thing regardless of what the response was going to be from people. In other words, I limited that mindset of people pleasing. And that's not easy. I'm making it sound easy. It is not always easy. So anyway, once you figure out your purpose and what you feel like you've been purposed to do, it doesn't matter as much what other people think, because you know that the vision you've been given to you.
Yeah.
So they're not supposed to understand it like you understand it.
I think that's huge. And last shift I'm going to ask, and this is me getting kind of idealistic and just thinking about the power of our channel, right? I mean, if if you were to think so many amazing companies, amazing brands, amazing leaders, leading amazing communities, I don't know the number, but if you could give a single belief shift to every single distributor, consultant, promoter, whatever term we want to use as a channel, every single one of us all around the world, however many there are, one shift to every distributor, what shift would you give every direct selling distributor in the world?
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends, by the way, Blake, who've had a lot of success in different companies. And that's why I love the industry as a whole, not just my own company, because I have plenty of friends who are in different companies. And I would say the things we talk about often when we hang out as different successful business partners, but are not business partners in the same company, is that if people realized that if failure wasn't an option, what would they go out and do? Would they talk to more people? You know what I mean? Would they talk to more people consistently? Would they show up more? If you knew that in the end you were going to succeed no matter what. The challenge is that you brought it up earlier, so it's almost like we're bookending this whole episode with it. Is that we don't see what the full picture looks like because we don't understand that dot was not a failure. It was a connector. It empowered you. It equipped you to handle the objection. You had to get that. You had to have that person quit on your team because they had to be practiced before the person that came who was going to be successful. So you wouldn't say the wrong thing to this person. You had to say the wrong thing to the person who was going to quit anyway, because that was practice. Like, all of that didn't happen to you. It happened for you. So if I could instill that belief that, look, every single thing you're going through is a dot. It is happening for you, not to you. So now when something happens, I want you to say to yourself, you know what, this happened for me. It happened because it's supposed to elevate me. I may not be able to see it right now, but it happened for me because it's something I can't see, but I know it's designed to make me better, to make me stronger, and to make me more successful.
So good, Darnell. You got me fired up, and I know anybody that listens to this conversation is going to feel the same. I'm so appreciative and grateful for the time that you shared. Any closing thoughts before we round out today's conversation?
This has been great, Blake. I'm looking forward to participating more in our space, in our industry, because I do believe that those who've had a lot of success have a lot to add to the new person. And I know it meant a lot to me to have people who have been successful for a long period of time to be able to share their testimony, their stories, because it equipped me with the opportunity to have success even faster than them. My company, by the way, Blake, I don't know if you know this, was 27 years old when I joined. So a lot of folks thought, hey, it's had its day. All the success people already had, made all the money. And so for me, it meant a lot for me, as we talked about the fleas, for them to be able to say, hey, I see something in you. You're going to do bigger things than I did. You're going to make more than I did. You're going to impact more people than I did. And so I think we need more of those of us who've been around for a long time saying that to new people, that Gen Z folks, those Gen Z that Gen Z population, because they do have an opportunity to win even greater than us. And I can't wait to hear their testimonies.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Darnell Self, and this has been an inspiring conversation, an enlightening conversation, and something I know can add value to your business today and those around you. If you guys got value from our time today, we're doing this just to make an impact, right? For no other reason than to add value, for no other reason than to make you out there listening. You're the next all-star. You're the next Pro Bowler. You're the future Hall of Famer. It is possible. And I know if you apply some of the nuggets we got today, it's going to move you in that direction. If you guys got value, please drop by the podcast, leave us a good rating, leave a review. We'll read them. We'll share them. And now you have a gift that you can give. This conversation can be a gift to people you know in the space, someone that needs a shift, right? Someone that needs an inspiration, someone that wants to compress time by getting access to the wisdom from Darnell today. So please share this, get the word out. Darnell Self, everybody. Darnell, thanks for the time, brother. I appreciate all of it. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys very much. We'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.